So with the World Championship ending, we're going to talk about the winners and losers of the World Championship. Let's start off with the winners. Well, literally the winners. NRG, they didn't lose a single series in the tournament, given it's not a Swiss, so you play slightly less than what you would have normally, but still won every single series they played. Didn't get to play Karmic Corp, but they did get to play Team Falcons in the grand final, won against them 4-1, which people weren't expecting. And then in the semi-final, also won 4-0 against GK. So, a very, very, I don't want to say dominant tournament, but a clear, like, Energy were the best team in this tournament. No real question about it. Or at least they played the best, right? Going into it, Team Falcons and Karmic Corp were the clear top two favorites. In particular, Karmic Corp was seen as the favorite as they had just won EWC and won the major in Birmingham, though, losing the Rally major to Falcons, of course. But yeah, those two were the clear top two favorites. And although it's not too surprising to see Falcons get an upset on Karmic Corp, I'm going to call it an upset for now. Feel free to disagree on which team is better, but going into it, we did expect Karming to win, as they also did an EWC against them. And that one wasn't too surprising because we all know they're very close, right? Then, Falcons can definitely win against Karming Corp. But what we didn't expect is NRG winning against Falcons in the grand final. So definitely, kind of an upset there. I mean, even Atomic said it, he didn't expect it to be this season that he'd win the World Championship. So, great for them. Great story as well for Beast Mode. You got that image from last year where he's looking at BDS, lift a trophy after a close grand final against them. But now, against all odds, NRG have done it this year when they really weren't expected to do so. Most people had them max third, but, people had them as low as fifth, really. Maybe even sixth if you want to really push it. But realistically, most people had them between third to fifth best team in the world going into this event, and they won it all. So, without losing a series, and it was a fairly convincing grand final, although each game was close, but still 4-1, NRG were the best in the world. Then I'm also going to put GK in the winners section. They didn't play the best teams to make top four. You look at wildcard, they had to play wildcard. The best OCE team that was the last team they played to make it into top four. So maybe not the greatest run, but I feel like with people, usually putting them between, fifth to eighth, I want to say best in the world going into this World Championship, making top four kind of shows that don't want to say people were sleeping on them again, but although people gave them a lot of credit for the UWC run, they probably still didn't give them enough. Potentially myself included, because they did win against Dignitas again. Not that I was too surprised about that, to be honest. I will say, looking at all the matches they did play, I wouldn't really say they overperformed necessarily, but just to get, the number top four for them, I would still say is a win. They did lose against Ultimates, which technically would be seen as an upset after EWC, and they did just barely win against Dignitas. And although people do have Dignitas higher, myself included, that has been kind of the bogey team for Dignitas, that being GK. So they won in a series that I wasn't really surprised about. And on SSG again, I expected GK to win that one, although SSG are a really good team. They played a really good group stage. I didn't really consider them a top 8 team either, to be honest with you. So yeah, not the greatest wins for GK, but still that number top 4, it looks good for them. So I'm still gonna put them in the winners. Although they did also get swept by Energy, which is not the greatest, but every game most of the games at least felt pretty close, right? So not too bad. Then probably, the second most obvious one to put in the winner section is Wildcard. They finished last in the last 2 LAN events. EWC, they finished last, or joint last, if you will, and at the Rally Major as well. So yeah, making top 6 is actually just simply unheard of. It's one of the biggest, what if stories ever. It's not a kind of situation you expect at all. With sweeping Furia 3-0, who's Furia, people didn't think they were too great going into this event, though we still found it a bit surprising. But then to sweep Dignitas straight after, that was even more surprising, right? So that, yeah, it sounds fake. It's like you're playing a Rocket League career mode with Wildcard or something. It doesn't seem like this. It didn't seem like this was even possible, to be quite honest. And yeah, it was an incredible run from Wildcard. Torsos, he might now be considered, the player with the most impressive longevity. That can easily be argued, but Yeah, he's definitely right up there. At least like top 3 for me has to be, right? So very, very impressive. And then Fever and Banana Head, those two played incredibly well, obviously. So yeah, very good performance from OCE. Interesting to see. Will be interesting to see how they do moving on from this. You know, was this just a one-off event or not? I'm expecting them to definitely go down a level, but I wouldn't be surprised if they definitely do better next year than they did all of this year, excluding the World Championship. So should be interesting. Obviously in the playoffs, they did just get kind of bopped in numbers wise, 4-1, 4-1. But in those games, they were actually quite close to both Falcons and GK. So, even in the playoffs, they looked pretty good, to be honest. They looked like they could definitely beat, let's say, an SSG who, were knocked out the round before. So, yeah, I'm not sure if they would have, but it definitely looks possible. So, wildcard, even in playoffs, looks pretty good. So, yeah, definitely in the winner section or wildcard making a dream top 6. I'm also going to put NIP in the winner section. People didn't expect them to be top 8. I personally did, looking at my my tier list of or my top 10 list of the teams going into the World Championship. I had them at 8th, I think. Winning against Vitality, very impressive win. I mean, they looked exotic, looked terrible. They made him look terrible, and he was not comfortable in that match against NIP at all. He was not having a good time. But still, Team Vitality were seen as kind of, I would say, just still inside of the top 4 for most people, top 4 teams in the world going into the World Championship. So beating them to make top 8, very, very impressive. Had a close series with Karmine Corp as well in the playoffs. I mentioned it during when we were making the list, but NIP, one of 5 teams going into the World Championship to have beaten Karmine Corp, right, in RLCS. So they were definitely capable of doing it or keeping it close, and they did. So yeah, a good job from NIP beating Twisted Minds as well, who most people had above NIP going into this event. So although you definitely had to bank on the what ifs for NIP going into this event, because you don't really have that proof of how well they would do on a LAN, considering their nerves, in crucial playoff situations during the regionals. But yeah, I guess Nas just performs well at LANs when he gets there, maybe not trying to get there, or when he's trying to get there, but when he's there, I guess he just plays well at LAN. He's done so every single time, 3 out of 3 now. So, yeah, a good performance for NIP to make top 8. Could they have done a little bit more? Maybe, but with their low seed, the bracket was going to be really hard for them, and especially because Karmine Corp went into the lower bracket. They could have definitely made top 6, but top 8 they should be fairly happy with. Then I'm also going to put SSG in the winners section. They didn't have the hardest matchups going into top 8, and then even when they made top 8, they went against a team that they themselves didn't have the hardest matchups going into top 4. So you do question kind of like that bottom half of the playoff bracket. How good are they really? And that includes SSG, who did have a good win against Team Secret, who themselves won against Twisted Minds, right? So it almost feels like a double win there, where you win against Twisted Minds and Team Secret. Kind of, not literally, but it feels kind of like that, right? Which is pretty good, but you do kind of question, would Dignitas have been a better team there? Were Big Dignitas a better team than SSG? Even in the group stage, maybe, because Dignitas, they lost in game 5 against GK, whereas SSG, I would say they definitely got bopped a little bit harder by GK in the playoffs. So definitely an argument there where maybe Vitality or Dignitas were more deserving, especially because Vitality won against SSG in the upper bracket, right? That game 5 victory. I think it was a reverse sweep. Yeah, it was a reverse sweep from Team Vitality. So not the most convincing top 8, but I will say that, again, same thing for GK, where just seeing that you made top 8 and then you look at your rivals in Team Vitality who didn't make top 8, it does look good for them. So I'm sure they'll be still happy with a top 8 regardless. Then I'm also going to add Virtus Pro, who didn't really make it that far. They only made top 16, but to get there, and the teams they played in the group stage were pretty good. They want to get Shopify, which people weren't expecting. Virtus Pro, myself included, I didn't expect them to do too well, considering they lost against FUT in EWC, which isn't the greatest team. They're pretty good, right? They usually take a game off of any team, but still, you wouldn't expect them to beat Virtus Pro, right? But they did. So my estimation of them definitely decreased a little bit after that, but in reality, I can see now that that was a mistake. Winning against Shopify Rebellion, an NA team, NA5 they would be, which was impressive. Keeping it close against NIP in every game, that was impressive, and NIP made top 8, right? So, that shows that was a good result. And then as well, sweeping MIBR, that was a really good result. And that wasn't even that close, to be honest. I mean, they looked dominant in that series against, Razeable. That's a big name. People have always rated Razeable, but clearly he's declined a little bit, but still, Virtus.pro, very impressive from them. And then as well, in the group stage, they played against Corp and GK, who made top 4, both of them, right? So lose against 2 top 4 teams, not too bad, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely in the winner section there. And then we have Team Rock as well. I say Team Rock. Rock Esports is their actual name. They did pretty well. Of course, they really didn't do well in the group stage. They kind of got bopped twice, by Dignitas and Furia. But I would say in their play-ins, they were rather impressive. Winning against FUT, okay, nobody cares. But then sweeping Gen G, people were not expecting that. People have always kind of, slept on Mina, except from their best team, and now also in their, mostly import team, Interest in Minds. But yeah, for Rock, the expectations weren't too high for most people. So yeah, they bopped NA. They made them look like rookies. They were just mechanically superior, I guess. I mean, Joria said it himself, right? They're really mechanical players. System maybe not quite there for them, that structure in their team, but they showed up to play, and they destroyed Gen G, and I feel like that alone already is a win for them, right? They didn't really have to do anything else after that. So yeah, to come out of play-ins through the upper bracket, I thought was really impressive for them. So yeah, in the winner section. So then I'm going to do a bit of a mess section. I'm going to include Falcons here first. Obviously, they made the grand final, but they lost the grand final against a team that most people thought would lose against them. But still, they also won in the semifinals against a team that they thought they would lose against. So yeah, overall, I think it's just a meh. Obviously, they're going to be themselves really, really disappointed, but I'm still going to put them in the mess section because they looked really, really good in the event. And going into next year, people are going to be really hot on Falcons again. They're going to have high expectations, and yeah, they're going to be probably the favorites for the FIFA E World Cup again. Because of how the nations things work, right? I don't think there's anyone else that'll have the exact same roster of Falcons' level, right? Unless NRG accepts the invite again, then it's going to be right between them, as to who's going to be the favorite. So that'll be exciting to see the FIFA World Cup. We could see a rematch between these two teams in the grand final. And yeah, it's going to be kind of a 50-50 matchup now, isn't it? So should be really, really interesting. But yeah, I can't put them in the losers or winners. For me, gotta put them in meh. Ultimates, they looked really, really good early on. This is quite a common theme, isn't it, with the Ultimates? Not like they bombed out or anything, but if you're going to win against Corp, you then have to win against NRG as well, which they didn't. And then they had to play Corp again. And well, Corp is not really a team you want to have a rematch against. If you win against them once, the likelihood of you winning against them again is really, really low, right? So yeah, I don't think they had a good chance of winning that, but they were really close to making top 4. So I feel like they'll be kind of disappointed that they didn't do better, but at the same time, making top 6 will be above what people expected from them, considering how badly, the Rally Major and EWC went for them. So top 6, kind of roughly where I would expect them to end up, and they did so, but a fair chunk of people had them a little bit lower, so yeah. Then I'm also going to include Team Secret, who, won against Twisted Minds, but lost against SSG, which I think kind of takes each other out and ends up just kind of being a meh tournament for Team Secret. Then for the losers section, I'm going to start out with Corp, who quite simply were expected to win the tournament, right? So not winning it is already a bit of a loser situation. If you come into it as the favorite, as the winner of EWC, look at last year, the winner of EWC did also win the World Championship. So yeah, you were expected to win, but you didn't. Also had a bad start, losing against the Ultimates in the group stage, and then had to make up for it, and a lot of work to do there. And then ultimately losing against a team that, myself included, most people thought was only slightly worse. So although that isn't too bad, you're still the favorite, And if they didn't lose that series against the Ultimates, maybe they go into that series with more confidence and they win it potentially, right? So yeah, who knows what would have happened if we see Karma Corp against NRG in that tournament. You know, we didn't get to see that matchup, which would have been a really good one to see, but yeah, we'll never see it, and it's because Karma Corp just simply underperformed. Then I'm also going to add Dignitas here. You know, they won against Rock, but then lost against Wildcard and GK. The GK one, honestly, I think you can excuse that one. It's really not that big of a deal. We all know that it's their boogie team that they usually lose against them, but then lose against Wildcard. And I get, you know, we want to give credit to Wildcard. They were incredible, and they were, but still, from the perspective of Dignitas, you can't say that this was an okay event or a good event. It was a bad event for them. We have to put it that way. There's no other way to put it, right? OCE beating apparently Jack twice at the World Championship in 2 years, right? So yeah, very cool for them, but for Dignitas, not so cool. And they're going to be quite embarrassed, to be honest. OCE, people have been memeing on them, right? And to get swept by them, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. So yeah, definitely loser section for them, as well as Furia, who lost against a wild card as well. Maybe not as surprising as Zingertoss, but still pretty surprising. So they automatically go here, and they didn't make it to playoffs. So yeah, Furia, loser section again. Then we have Vitality. I mean, they didn't even make top 8. And a lot of people, when I say a lot of people, I don't mean most people, but the number definitely increased for this event specifically. People thought Monkey Moon would rise to the occasion and become the GOAT again, and Vitality win the World Championship out of absolutely nowhere. But no, that's not what happened. They lost against NIP in a fairly embarrassing fashion. It was fairly convincing, and a lot of bad mistakes from Team Vitality. And yeah, here they are. I mean, they won against SSG, who made top 8 themselves. So you can argue Team Vitality, if they played an SSG or a Furia or a Team Secret, maybe they do make top 8. But still, NIP didn't make it farther than top 8. So it's not the greatest look for Vitality. You don't even have to discuss the matchups. You just need to hear did Vitality make top 8? No. Okay, clear disappointment, right? It's just that simple. Then for Gen G, they looked fairly disappointing. You know, ever since they played at that LAN, they just look super defensive. And I'm not saying they weren't before, but I had higher hopes for Gen G going into the Rally Major than whatever came after that. That's for sure. And yeah, they lost against Rock, right? Rock Esports, being a number 3. You expect them to at least edge out that series or keep it close, but they got swept. They got swept 3-0, then had a fairly close series against Shopify 3-1. So you can say, okay, they're still NA number 4, you know, but and then they got bopped in the group stage. So, you know, they lost against NA3, so there's no conversations there. Are they close to SSG? They can make it close sometimes, but they've proven they're not as good as them, and it's by quite a margin. So Gen G, top 16, nothing to be happy about. So disappointment for them. And then Twisted Minds. I mean, Naopo, or Nobu, or whatever we're calling him now, you know, won that 1v1 event. But in terms of the threes, they lost that top 16, losing against Top Secret, who I thought would have been worse than them, especially because Team Twisted Minds, rather, had such a good rally major, right? But no, ever since then, they haven't looked too great. And then losing against NIP as well, who most people, you know, excluding me, didn't have them in the top 8 or top 10 in the world in going into the event. So not the greatest look from Twisted Minds. Again, they made top 16, no real conversation there. They're not going to be happy. They did much better in every single other LAN, except for EWC, where they did only slightly better, so to speak. But yeah, clear disappointment for them. And yeah, that's all the teams in the top 16. There we go. So yeah, it was a very, very exciting World Championship. The crowd was amazing. Really, really fun to watch. You know, a lot of surprising results. The whole wildcard situation was really, really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video too. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.